Hard control lists in Modern haven't been in the best place for a while now. Jeskai and Azorius lists together only currently make up about 0.7% of the meta. Other than that, the only real control lists are more of the mid-range lists such as Murktide variants like the Blue-Black Frogtide list and the Blue-Black or Esper Murktide with Oculus. Today, I'd like to give my take on a hard control list that I'll currently be playing for the foreseeable future. But before we get into the deck list, I'd appreciate it if you could take a minute to subscribe. Those subscriptions really show me you're interested in the content and will drive me to make more videos in the future. I've always been a huge fan of Esper. It has almost everything you could ask for a control deck. This list takes some aspects of the Azorius control list while splashing some black cards to shore up some early game weaknesses that Azorius control can have. It also allows us access to a few sideboard options I run that Azorius doesn't have access to. I'm currently running the 61 card special, mostly because I honestly have no idea what I should be cutting. To start with, let's go over the Planeswalkers. We run 3 small Teferis, 3 Narset Parter of Veils, 2 Jace the Mind Sculptor, and 2 Teferi Hero of Dominaria. That's a whopping 10 Planeswalkers. I will say it's on the higher end, but all of them have a purpose. Jace and 5-drop Teferi both act as win conditions in this deck, while 3-drop Teferi and Narset are both card advantage and utility. For creatures, we only run 2 Solitudes. I would say I would like a 3rd copy of Solitude to help in the creature matchups, but there's really just no room in the deck. We also have plenty of other removal spells and cards we can use as win conditions, so it's not entirely required. If there are any other cards you'd like to trim one of to make room for a 3rd Solitude, it wouldn't be the worst.
This is Sparta!
Next, we have our removal suite. We're running 2 Path to Exile, 2 Prismatic Ending, 3 Fatal Push, 2 Void Rend, 2 Supreme Verdict, and 3 Wrath of the Skies. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory, but I'd like to point out 2 cards in particular, the first of which is Path to Exile. With the introduction of cards like Ketramos into the format on top of many decks running a smaller and smaller number of basics, I found that Path to Exile has been more playable than ever in the format. Also, being a 1-mana removal spell for any creature is extremely useful when trying to cast multiple spells or also holding up counter magic. The other card I'd like to discuss is Void Rend. Modern as a format has a pretty good number of decks that are blue based or splash blue to play counter magic. Void Rend gives us a way to fight against other control decks or blue/blue splashing mid-range decks. Void Rend cutting through ward cost is another plus when dealing with ward creatures. While Prismatic Ending is awesome since it exiles the target, Void Rend can hit any non-land permanent regardless of the mana cost.
How about new, you crazy Dutch bastard?
Then we come to the counterspells. We're running 2 Spell Snare, 3 No More Lies, 2 regular Counterspell, and 1 Force of Negation. The only surprise for most people will be the 3 No More Lies. While some people may not be a fan of a mana leak effect, Modern is in such a place that the difference between mana leak and straight up counterspell is almost non-existent. Very few games get to the point where your opponent can cast their spell as well as pay an additional 3 mana. There are a few positives to running No More Lies. The first is that the card exiles a spell it counters. Flage is a pretty big threat in the format at the moment. There are also a large number of decks that use the graveyard for delve costs or for reanimation. Stopping these threats on the stack loosens the pressure later on when you're trying to turn the corner. Second, No More Lies can also be pitched to both Solitude and Force of Negation. Being able to pitch to both of these loosens the pressure on your other cards in your hand and makes it much more flexible. This is something that Counterspell can't do. Lastly, while No More Lies is 2 colors, this is actually a positive. Normally needing multiple colors can create tension. In Modern, we have to worry constantly about the threats of Blood Moon and Harbinger of the Seas. No More Lies allows us to grab basics while not needing to grab double blue for Counterspell. This also makes it easier to get double white for our sweepers or double blue turn 3 or 4 planeswalkers. It also makes being able to play our 3 color spells easier as well. We do still run 2 regular counterspells though as hard counters when needed. Lastly, we have 2 more spells in the deck, Esper Charm and Days Undoing. Days Undoing is our combo piece with Narset, but it can also help us when we need to refill or find answers we don't currently have. Esper Charm, while not being a normal mainstay in Modern for quite some time, has many uses in Modern at the moment. The main use for this card will almost always be to draw 2 cards, but don't downplay the use of the other 2 modes. There are many enchantments in the format that can be removed with Esper Charm. Leyline Binding, Leyline of the Guild Pact, Jeskai Ascendancy, Static Prison, Fable the Mirror Breaker, Overlord of the Baelmerk, and Blood Moon are some major enchantments we could be removing. Also, when we have a 3-drop Teferi in play, we can Esper Charm our opponent to make them discard 2 cards after they draw for the turn, and they'll be unable to cast at any instant speed cards in their hand. Our lands are pretty easy to understand with this list. 4 Flooded Strands and 4 Polluted Deltas for fetches, 2 Hallowed Fountains and 2 Watery Graves for shock lands, 2 Meticulous Archive and 1 Undercity Sewers for surveil lands, 1 Rafine's Tower as a tri-land to help fix our mana or cycle when you don't need the land, 1 Creeping Tar Pit and 1 Celestial Colonnade for our man lands, 2 islands, 2 plains, and 1 swamp for basics, and then Field of Ruin as both a way for us to get a basic we need as well as destroying any problematic lands.
I take my gun and I go pew 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 pew!
As for our sideboard, we need to focus heavily on Eldrazi. This is probably one of the biggest weaknesses for us that takes up a larger meta share. For that, we're running 4 Consigned Memory, 1 Shatter Assumptions, and a Vindicate. I was originally running 2 copies of Shatter Assumptions, but I do feel any extra copies drawn in a game become useless. For Graveyard Hate, we're running a single copy of Ashiok Dreamrender and 2 Rest in Peace. We also have Kaya Orzhov Usurper as a 3rd card when we use for Graveyard Hate, but it also acts as life gain and removal against small permanents. Alongside our other exile effects, it can also act as a pretty solid win condition. Lastly, we have 2 copies of Celestial Purge and a Yeheni's Expertise. Celestial Purge is a more obvious card, but Yeheni's Expertise might be one people don't understand or even recognize at all. Yeheni's Expertise is in here almost strictly for Boros energy, but any small creature-based deck are decks we can bring it in against. Sweepers in general in Modern create a weird problem for the control player in most situations. You usually end up having to tap out for them, but you can't follow up with a play of your own afterwards, which allows your opponent to continue to keep the pressure on you. With Yeheni's Expertise, you can not only sweep away their creatures, but you can also drop one of your 3-cost Planeswalkers or cast a card such as Voidrend, Esper Charm, or Days Undoing off of it. This allows you to get yourself on board or push further ahead to pressure your opponent. Overall, this deck has been a load of fun. I originally ran the Icecrown Scepter package with Orm's Chant, but I felt that there were times when more impactful spells that pushed me towards winning the game would have been more useful. There were times when, even under a Chant combo, instant speed spells on our turn without a Teferi in play created losses for us. Thanks again to all those that watched all the way through. If you like this deck or the video, please give it a like, and again, subscribes mean a huge amount. Until next time.